We're gonna talk some boxing. So this one is as you can see, titled Callum Smith is not a straight up and down fighter, or he's not a simple fighter like everybody's trying to make it sound. In fact, I heard Ned Campbell say he's a jab right hand fighter. That's not true. Also, I was just listening to Joe Beeb, and he's likening him onto Mikkel Kessler. All right. I just went and watched Mikkel Kessler, and I just watched Callum Smith. They're two different fighters. All right, let me explain what Callum Smith is. And he does have some special effects, actually. Callum Smith is a rangy, long counterpuncher. All right. Callum Smith doesn't have to use the jab, and sometimes he doesn't use the jab. In fact, when I look at Callum Smith's jab, it's not really a very strong jab. He usually has a pouring jab, right? He's trying to keep distance, keep range. So an example of that would be like here. I'm going to demonstrate in the orthodox stance. Remember, I'm a southpaw. But in the orthodox stance, right, Callum Smith will pour with the jab, pour with the jab, pour with the jab, pour with the jab. He might even keep the jab out there a little bit. Boom, boom, right? He pours with the jab. Now, the other thing he will do, if you're coming towards him, he's going to keep the jab out there as he's pivoting backwards. And they say that he doesn't have quick feet. He actually has quick feet. He does like this. It's a quick little shuffle, back or forward. So he does shuffle pretty quickly. But Callum Smith's trick is he's actually a counterpuncher. Okay? If you look at all the knockouts or knockdowns that Callum Smith has hit a guy with, he was moving backwards and he check hook a guy, right? So the guy's there, he's moving backwards, snapping back, and he check hooks the guy, right? The other thing he might do is Callum Smith, for example, he likes to pull counter you. So as you throw your jab or you throw your right hand, he leans back, right? And then what does he do? He comes over the top with the right hand. So he'll slip your jab is going to pass here. I'm in the orthodox stance. I'm not used to the orthodox. He'll slip it and come back over the top with the right hand, right? Whoop, right? Okay. The other thing he does is he might lead with the right hand. All right. He may throw a lead right hand at you. Orthodox is so weird, right? He might just pop the lead right hand at you. Okay. The other thing he might do, he might double or triple up the jab, boom, boom, to blind you, and come up the center like Canelo, like Floyd, with the uppercut. Right? He also, if he's moving backwards, might catch you with the uppercut, right? He does those kinds of things. Here's another special effect he does. And actually, the only thing with Callum Smith is he does get popped with the jab a little too much. Even though he has the high guard, sometimes he's in the extended guard, sometimes he's high guard. He don't really pop a lot of jabs. Now, they say he throw a lot of jabs for 168-pound division. But when I look at it, they're not really jabs. He's not really jab. His thing is his right hand. His right hand is he sets up for his right hand, and he likes to throw the overhand right. Okay? And nail you with the overhand right. Or hit you with the, he likes to nail you over the top of the overhand right. Or he likes to, throw the overhand right here. Or straight down the center. He also touches you to the body with the jab. He has a nice, really solid jab to the body. Okay, he has a really solid jab to the body. That's probably his most effective jabbing weapon. Jabbing to the head, he's not really so solid. He mixes it up. He varies the speed of the jab. So all of that's pretty cool. He also, Callum Smith, he likes to throw hooks, but he throws it in a combination. So he'll come with, strangely, he does not start with a jab, right hand, left hook. He may start with an uppercut, come over the top with the left, right? So he'll come up the center with the uppercut, come over the side with the left hook, all right? He may come with a straight right. He may lead with a straight right and roll under and come off to the side. So he does have some skill. He does have some special effects that he does use. Mikkel Kessler never did none of those things. Mikkel Kessler was a jab, right hand guy, or a jab, right hand. So Mikkel Kessler would be trying to line you up like this, and then jab, right hand, right? Boom, boom, jab back up, right? So that was what Mikkel Kessler would do. And he wasn't even athletic as Callum Smith. But the problem with Callum Smith is all of his power, sort of like Sergey Kovalev, most of his power comes on the end of his shots And because he's so long and rangy, it really his power really works when he's leveraging it from a distance. So the problem with Callum Smith with Canelo, there were two problems actually. Callum Smith is usually the aggressor, even though he can box going backwards a little bit, and he does, but he will mostly box you in the center of the ring, right? And if you're coming at him, he will try to keep you off with the jab and spin out, right? That's what he would do. Now, is that simple? No, that's not simple. Okay. Some other things he do that I thought were very interesting, and it just shows how young and athletic and how skillful he is he knows how to parry. So kind of like Canelo, he'll he'll bait you. So he'll flick out a little jab there, right? Bait you to throw your jab, catch your jab. And I say, all right, I got him. I'm gonna do that again. So he flicks out the jab. He won't do it the first time. He flick out the jab, right? Flick out the jab at you, right? And once he flicks out the jab at you, right, you're going to respond. You're going to either throw a lead right, like what happened with George Groves. George Groves threw a lead right hand. He let him. He bait him twice. He bait George Groves in twice. So he's a thinking fighter. He bait George Groves in twice to throw that right hand. And once George Groves threw that right hand, as he threw the right hand, he check hooked him. Right? He hit him with the left, and that was it. And then he just fall in on him and crashed him. So, and when he falls in on his opponent, he goes off to the side of his opponent. So he's not directly in front of his opponent against special effects. Comes off to the side and runs off the combinations on the side of the opponent, right? He run off the combinations off the side, right? So you have to understand that Callum Smith's not just straight up and down fighter like they like to make it sound like. Even though he is a bit basic in terms of what he does, but what he does very well. How do I say this? He still slides in off of certain angles, right? So, but the problem with Callum Smith is he's a limited fighter. It's not that he's a basic fighter, he's a limited fighter. What I mean by that is he's limited by range. So if you cramp him for range, now let's be abundantly clear though. Once he is the aggressor and he's up close with you on the inside, he does place good body punches. Oh, by the way, he does place some really good body punches, good left hooks to the body. Again, from a distance mostly, because he's so big, long, and wide. He'll place beautiful left hooks to the body. Boom, right? Beautiful left hook to the body and come back. So he has some good stuff. And in close, when he's in close against you, he's in close here, he still finds that position to land a left hook here or land a left hook, a right hook there or whatever, right? I'm not an orthodox fighter, okay? So don't fault me on that. But by and large, he's not as basic as people make it sound. It's just that he's still rangy. He's a very rangy fighter. So the only time he really does something to you, and most of his power come at the end of his punch, he don't have short chopping punches. But Canelo, he has short chopping punches. And Canelo can close the distance. A lot of fighters, in closing the distance, they try to feint as if they're getting into the pocket, feint until they're getting. So most fighters, they try to feint as if they're going to go into the pocket. They feint and they stay on the periphery and they feint to go in the pocket, but they're not really putting their guard up and trying to walk into the pocket and pick off the shots, right? But Canelo is a special fighter. He could do that. So what happens is Canelo falls into a particular range where he's comfortable while leaning in. So he's closer. He's closer to you than it seems. That's why he's hunched over and he's leaning in like this, walking to him. Because basically he's closer to, it's a special effect. He's closer to Callum Smith, and Callum Smith thinks he's not closer to Callum. Sorry, he's further away from Callum Smith than Callum Smith thinks, but he's actually pushing himself like he's closer. So when Callum Smith throws the punch, he can snap back, whatever, pick it off, whatever. So lean back, pick it off, and then come in, right? So, and then he was be feinting as if he's gonna come in, feint like he's coming in, and I don't think you guys can see me. From the side, this is what I look like. Okay? So he's closer to him, but he's not really. He's actually further away, and then he's pretending like he's coming closer. So the guy takes a step back so he can come in again, and so on and so on, right? So at the end of the day, Canelo was able to get into a range where Callum Smith's not comfortable throwing his punches because he can't get full extension. Same thing he did with Sergey Kovalev. Sergey Kovalev couldn't get full extension on his punches. And so that's why Sergey Kovalev looked like he was so weak. And even though Sergey Kovalev's hands are heavy, right? He has very heavy hands. It's hard to locate Canelo. On top of that, he was keep on getting tagged up on the side of that. That's not cool. That's debilitating. You know what I mean? So that's basically what happened with Canelo uh, versus Callum Smith. Mikhail Kessler was a much more basic fighter than Callum Smith was. He was more jab, jab, right hand. Yeah, he did throw combinations, sometimes throw left hooks, but for the most part, he was a jab, jab, right hand guy. Callum Smith is not just a jab, jab, right hand guy. He can lead with the right hand. He can lead with the left hand. He is a counter puncher, and that's how he gets most guys out of there. But he doesn't really throw short chopping shots, except on the inside when he's body to body. He may throw a short chopping shot on the inside. He got long levers, so he has to kind of shorten up the shot. But for the most part, also I love his defense. I love his defense on the ropes. Not just bracing like this on the ropes, but also he'll collapse his guard one way and he might move off this way, or he may collapse the guard this way and move off this way. So that's just an interesting thing that he does, which I find very interesting. So he gets out of the way of the shot and he can move either way. I think that he got a lot more skills, but it's just that they're still developing them as a fighter, and he got the Canelo fight and he just went with it. I think you're going to see a lot more from this kid, just like Anthony Yard. You're going to see a lot more from Anthony Yard, and hopefully both guys grow and develop. Callum Smith, he still got a lot of years in front of him, and a lot of people were writing off Callum Smith and talking about he's basic and stuff. Well, if Callum Smith is basic, then so was Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., so was Sergey Kovalev, so was Danny Jacobs, and so was Triple G. Because guess what? Canelo was pushing all them motherfuckers backwards. Okay? He was walking all those guys down. How was he doing that? Told you how he was doing it. All right? Don't let no other people, they trivializing Callum Smith. Callum Smith's not basic like they say he is. He's not. But what is he's limited as a fighter. Right? He's limited as a fighter. He's still his mid-range game, he don't really have a mid-range game. He have an inside game. It's not well developed, but he got something on the inside. The other thing about him is he can fight, he can box a little bit going backwards, but his major thing when he really generates his power and leverage is when he's going forward, walking down guys. So that's another thing that he got to work on. He's got to work on how to circle out from a guy, how to fight going backwards, because he's generally the guy that's fighting going forwards, right? Canelo decided to take that from him and make him do something that he wasn't used to doing, and when that happened, he didn't know what to fall back on. Because he said, I gotta land that power. Let Canelo respect my power. And from there on in, now he knows he can't just step in on me, right? So that was what Callum Smith was trying to do. But Canelo found range pretty quickly, and it was harder. Callum Smith was still throwing punches on the inside, but it didn't have the kind of power because he doesn't really generate power from in close. He's got to work on his in close game. They need to work on their mid-range game, because Canelo's a mid-range fighter. So once Canelo finds his mid-range, he cool. And Callum Smith can't do nothing in the mid-range. So that's why Callum Smith looked like he just couldn't do nothing with Canelo, because Canelo wasn't on the end of his stick. He wasn't at the end of his range, and he couldn't do the kind of things he normally do because Canelo didn't respect distance. And Callum Smith had to establish that from the beginning. He just couldn't do it. So when Demetrius Anderson said, well, he wasn't doing nothing, he wasn't trying, he was trying to survive. He wasn't trying to survive. It's just that he couldn't be comfortable doing what he was doing. And when he finally did find something and he did land something, he missing the other set of punches. So he tried, but he still got a lot of things to learn before he could really be effective against Canelo. With Jamal Charlo can fight a little bit on the inside. He uses that uppercut mostly on the inside. He's strong. He can fight very well from the outside. Again, that's not necessarily a good thing, right? Because Canelo's slippery. He's very slippery, and I keep on trying to explain to people that Charlo's gonna have still a difficult time with Canelo, because Charlo has to develop more of his inside game and more of his mid-range game. He's got to develop it. He's got to develop that. I don't care how hard or heavy you think you have a jab. That is not going to make much of a difference if you're missing your opponent. And we saw what happened with Matt Caraboff, who's not even half the kind of fighter that Canelo is. We've seen it with Brian Adams, who's just moving through and getting on the inside, but Jamal Charlo would tie him up or try to rough him up on the inside. And of course, Brian Adams being a 154 pounder, you know what happened there. And Brian Adams, I think, has a lot more game. He's a lot more skillful, and I saw he just stopped a guy. He's a lot more skillful, I think, in many respects than Canelo is. So that's interesting. That's I'm not saying he has more home skills, but he's much more skillful. Now Canelo's a very strong guy himself, so that would be a good fight, Charlo versus Canelo. But I still got Canelo beating Charlo at the end of the day. I think the guy that could beat Canelo, but he got to tighten up his game still some more, is Demetrius Andrade. I think Billy Joe Saunders has, because of his versatility and so on, he would give Canelo problems initially, but then as the fight goes on, Canelo's going to tattoo him because he's going to slow down because of his conditioning. Billy Joe Saunders doesn't have excellent conditioning. He'll have excellent conditioning if he's not under pressure, but if you put him under pressure and you just be out tactically landing on him, especially those quick lightning counters, Billy Joe Saunders is going to fade. So I truly believe I would love to see Billy Joe Saunders versus Demetrius Andrade. I don't think Billy Joe Saunders will win that fight, but I'm just putting that out there. You never know. He could surprise all of us. But Billy Joe Saunders versus Demetrius Andrade. That's for Demetrius Andrade. If Demetrius Andrade ends up facing Canelo, he had a nice little stiff test with Billy Joe Saunders, so he knows what to expect from Canelo a little bit. And Saunders would be a southpaw as that. But Demetrius Andrade is probably the best. Like I said, the best guy to go up against Canelo. I see somebody leaving a question or something here. Prada Pierre says, I agree. Boo Boo is the one and only that can give Canelo an issue. Yep. Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, and Charlo gets beat by Canelo. Yeah, because again, styles make fights. Styles make fights, and I just think Plant is too young. I think David Benavidez, he's the same thing. Like he's gonna be the same thing. Like he's gonna be the same thing. Like Callum Smith. He's the same kind of fighter. You have to develop your inside game to a point, not just your inside, but your mid-range game, your inside and mid-range game to a point where you could be competitive with Canelo. Because once Canelo finds his range, it's over. Right? And the problem with David Benavidez is he's just like Callum Smith. He really operates best when he's pushing a guy back with his jab, right? When he's pushing the guy back with his jab, he operates his best. But if he's not pushing the guy back with his jab, and he's not the aggressor, he's not the bully, all of a sudden, it's a problem. Same thing with Jamal Charlo, except Jamal Charlo can box going backwards a bit. But you see, guys who have inside game, who really know how to maneuver themselves around the ring, they push him to the ropes. He gets pushed back to the ropes. And that happened up to recently with Derevyanchenko. He got pushed back to the ropes as well. So you can see a Callum Smith-like fight, sort of a Callum Smith, Daniel Jacobs kind of fight. And Daniel Jacobs had a lot of skill. Daniel Jacobs has more skill than all of them. Except, I think, Demetrius Andrade. Plant and BJ would fade late. David would be a big target for Canelo to drop bombs. Yeah, man, Canelo. But the thing about it is, he'll make David Benavidez constantly move backwards. If you're pushing a guy backwards that don't like to go backwards, like how he did with Triple G, he just made Triple G go backwards. He dropped bombs on the body, jabbing to the body, mixing it up to the body, to the head. You don't know where. David Benavidez don't know where the shot's coming from, and he mixing it up with feints and all kinds of shit. He's gonna be quicker than David Benavidez, right? David Benavidez is relatively slow, right? That's a tattoo, man. He be tattooing his ass up. He make him look like a punching bag. You know what I mean? A lot of people have confidence in David Benavidez because he throws combinations and shit, but his feet are like he don't have quick feet. You know what I mean? So he just be a big old punching bag, and he done already out of shape too. Yeah, he get the ribs, head, everything. Canelo tattoo everything. Go all right up the center with an uppercut. All kinds of shit will be happening. Yeah, I feel that with David Benavidez. You know what I mean? It'll be tactical for a minute. And David's so young. David's got a lot of potential, but right now, David Benavidez don't want nothing to do with. He shouldn't be messing around with Canelo. But I see he called out Canelo, so who knows? That might be the next fight. David Benavidez versus Canelo in Mexico. Who knows? February something, and then he has another one in May. David got fast hands, but feet are wet, sand slow. I'm saying, man, he got fast hands, but all those fast combinations. You remember Canelo versus Floyd, right? Canelo threw 5, 6 punch, 7 punch combination, and all the shots missed. It's the same thing. He ain't gonna be hitting nothing but air. He's too damn slow. Canelo's gonna be like Speedy Gonzalez in there. He just be doing the Matrix on him. So I don't think that David Benavidez is ready. Everybody's trying to hype it up as if Canelo's trying to duck David Benavidez. That makes no damn sense, right? I looked at the style already, and that's a style that Canelo can handle. So, and he's handled it for the longest while. How many times we got to see that style? It's like when dumbass people say, "Hey man, Paul Williams and Antonio Margarito, Floyd was afraid of them," but he been facing that style for his whole life, man. Gennaro Hernandez was the first guy. Tony Pep, shit, fucking Diego Corrales, Oscar De La Hoya. I mean, how many times Jose Luis Castillo? How many times has this guy had to face that style? And these are superior fighters to Paul Williams and Antonio Margarito. How many times has he had to face that style for you guys not to see he can master that style? How many times you got to see it? I never quite understood it, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? I love Errol, but he better stay away from Canelo. I mean, he could do his thing. I mean, he'll do his thing. I mean, he could do his thing. Errol be a small guy. Philip Andu, yeah, he tattooed out Philip Andu, but Philip Andu wasn't a high class, top tier elite fighter, so I don't really talk about Philip Andu. The guys I'm talking about, top tier guys. Gennaro Hernandez was a top tier guy, right? A veteran. I mean, the guy was undefeated at super featherweight. You know what I mean? And, WBC, WBA, champion, right? Multiple times, right? So, what I'm talking about is like, face of Zuma Nelson. You know what I mean? I mean, Diego Corrales, number one super featherweight in the world, just axing everybody. You know what I mean? He was like a Terminator. You know what I mean? So, what was it? 80% knockout ratio. You know what I mean? Went on to lightweight and laid waste to all of the lightweights in the lightweight division, including Jose Luis Castillo, a surprise knockout, right? So, it was a demon. He was a demon. You know what I'm saying? Jose Luis Castillo, he used to knock out everybody. You know what I'm saying? Took Joe Casamayor and almost beat his ass. You know what I mean? Severely gave him a beating. The only guy Jose Luis Castillo never dominated like that was Floyd Mayweather. And it's just one of those things where people don't understand that. Like Jose Luis Castillo is like one of the top 25 lightweights of all time. You know what I mean? So anyway, man. Yeah. So anyway, just trying to describe the style for people because a lot of people don't realize that styles make fights. Yes, I understand that different people are much more developed and they have their own originality within a style. But when you see a guy conquer a style at the highest level, at the elite level, and he's done it repeatedly, we talking Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was the first guy that was really big, had a long span. Of course, he fight mostly on the inside, but in this fight, when he was being coached by Mr. Berestein, he was fighting from range, right? He was using his jab, right? And when he even tried to do the infighting thing, he wasn't really that successful either, right? Then we see he faced Canelo faced Triple G, who was also bigger, very strong, very powerful puncher, very strong guy. And in the second fight, we saw him walk Triple G down. He had Triple G going the opposite direction, right? You remember that? People say Canelo's using steroids. Well, why does he have to use steroids? People don't understand. You don't have to be the heaviest puncher. It's how you maneuver your body and how you walk a guy down, right? And then the next fight that he had, that's interesting. Hold on one second. The next fight he had was with I just need to turn on some lights. The next fight he had was with who was it? Danny Jacobs, right? He had Danny Jacobs. No, he had that. I don't even like talking about this guy, but Rocky Fielding. We talk about him because he was the same height as Callum Smith, who just recently fought. But Rocky Fielding, well, he got him out of the way because Rocky Fielding, his defense was holy, right? Then he faced Daniel Jacobs was the other guy. Daniel Jacobs had so much skill. That was a skill fight, though. That was a skill fight. I loved it. Both guys had really good defense. I think Triple G gets stopped in the third fight with Canelo, and Charlo beats Triple G too. Yeah, Charlo, Demetrius Andrade, they beat Triple G. Canelo will stop Triple G. Yes, of course, he'll stop him this time around. And let me see what else you said. Yeah, but anyway, so Canelo he pushed Triple G back. He backed him up on all of that, and then we have Then after Canelo faced Triple G, he faced Danny Jacobs. Danny Jacobs gave Canelo the best fight, the most competitive fight. He started too late. He started too late. And then after that, we had Sergey Kovalev, and now he had Callum Smith. You know, all these are big guys, and he was walking every single one of them down. Well, what Daniel Jacobs did was going around and around in a circle, but he walked down everybody else, right? So I mean, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Sergey Kovalev, he had some special effects that he had in his fighting, but by and large, by and large, again, Canelo had him kind of. He was trying to maintain range, but it was very hard to do. Now, Demetrius Andrews talking about letting your hands go and throwing a whole bunch of punches and wasting energy. That's not how you beat Canelo. I'm gonna tell all these guys how you beat Canelo, because you gotta have them special Floyd-like skills to fight him in the pocket. You gotta beat him at his own game. You have to counterpunch the counterpuncher. You have to set him up. You gotta let him think that he could set you up, and then you have to set him up. The fight really is won in the center of the ring. Then once you won that fight in the center of the ring, you could go anywhere you want. You could let him come to you, go out to the outskirts of the ring. You could go to him and walk him, push him back. Floyd was pushing Canelo back. That's crazy. But that's what you got to do. But I can tell you right now, that's not gonna be an easy thing for those guys to do, because they have to have particular tools to do it with Canelo. It's not as easy as it sounds. Dmitry Pirog would have been a bad boy if it wasn't for his hurt back. Yeah, to slip this thing. Yeah, for sure. But that's what I got for with Canelo. I just wanted to tell you guys about that, because I was like, a lot of people saying how Callum Smith, he don't really have. He's a simple fighter. He's straight up and down, but he's not as straight up and down as people think, and he's not as simple as people think. I wouldn't call him a simple fighter at all, especially with a counterpuncher. He's a smart guy. Canelo wasn't just walking Floyd. He wasn't just walking down Floyd at all. Nope, not at all. They was in the center of the ring. Floyd actually walked down Canelo. He was pushing him back to the ropes. Of course, Canelo was trying to bait him, so he's allowing himself to be pushed back. But nonetheless, I always tell people defense wins you fights. As much as Demetrius Andre got knocked down twice, and once at 154, I think once at 160. I think that Demetrius Andre is probably the only guy that probably could give Canelo some kind of problems. Jamal Charlo also will give him a nice little run for his money, but I don't really see anybody at 168 really giving Canelo problems. Canelo felt some power from Floyd to respect. Yeah, Floyd had a little pop, and it's the way how he beat Floyd be aggressive at certain points in time. He just sit down flat-footed and just be very aggressive on Canelo. And Floyd has power. Even Roy Jones Jr. acknowledged Floyd has power in both hands. He just don't use it. He decides to go and box. He'll box you instead. But Floyd has pop. But his hands have been pretty bad. That's why he knocked out the little Japanese kid, and he knocked out Conor McGregor. You can't knock out a fighter if you ain't got pop. But he let McGregor tire out. His hands are brittle. Well, yeah, technically speaking, sort of, because he got a lot of broken bones in his hands. But most fighters have broken bones in their hands. Most fighters, they break their hands. They just don't talk about it. Teofimo Lopez, he had a hairline fracture in his wrist or something like that. Yeah, fighters break their hands. That's part of the course in boxing. So that's what I got for now. I just wanted to say that because Callum Smith is not as they're making him out to be this super simple fighter, jab right hand. That's not what Callum Smith is. Notice to him, 100 just from wear and tear. Yeah, he always had hand problems somewhere. It really became a big problem somewhere in super featherweight, and then he got a good person who was doing his hands for him. And it was the old guy that died recently. And yeah, he used to do his hands and get taken care of. Then he had special gloves. The Grant gloves really helped his hands a lot. Yeah, and at a certain point, he was using Novocaine. He had to take a Novocaine injection. All right, peoples, man. I am out of here. What you need in the building, but about to leave the building. If you guys want to talk any other issues, just bring it up in the comment section in the stream. Comes up there. 2 other streams that are really super long. I streamed like a lot today. Shout out to Jerome. And there's some other fighters that I could have talked about on the undercard of these cards, but I'll save that for another time. Frank Sanchez, he finally knocked out his opponent, who proved to be a bit more durable than he was in his last fight. Frank Sanchez, I don't think of him as a heavyweight with a whole lot of power. To me, he's like he has Chris Bird power, and he's a little bit more sloppier than Chris Bird, but we'll see what happens with him. I think he's going to be the mandatory for a fight with, who was it? I'm trying to remember who it is that he's supposed to fight. Mandatory for Michael Hunter. So he might be paired up with Michael Hunter next, and he may face Michael Hunter next. So we'll see how that goes. Michael Hunter can box. So I don't know, man, Frank. I don't know if you're ready for Michael Hunter. The bounty hunter is something else. I'm gonna catch you guys later on What You Need. Peace.